welcome to my studio. So today we're discussing acrylic markers. Sorry about the clunky noise. I have a love-hate relationship with these things. I've recently discovered, well I say recently, this year, acrylic markers have been my go-to. I always thought I was an alcohol marker girly, but I seem to reach for these far more. They are perfect. They go over every single medium. They work on nearly every single surface. So it's great when you're working with mixed media in your journal pages or on a mixed media 3D project. Love them. Absolutely become my favourite things. However, these things drive me nuts because as amazing as they are so unpredictable. Some days they choose to work. Other days they don't. Sometimes they are so dry. One day the pen can be so dry I can't make it work. The next day it's juicy. Honestly, drives me nuts. So I love these and hate these all at the same time. But I then really wanted to make it my mission to find a set of acrylic markers that I could just love, that had all those pros but without the cons that drive me absolutely up the wall about these markers. So I hit Amazon. I have 6 different ones to choose from. We are going to swatch, we are going to play, and we're going to come up with the results. Now what I've done a little bit differently, because when I first purchased these, I swatched them, I fell in love with them, I was about to make a video and I was so enthusiastic. I thought these were the best things since sliced bread and I would have recommended them to you all. But then as I was using them, few little niggles appeared. So I actually bought all of these acrylic markers months and months ago, and I have been playing with them for months, and I've been taking notes, and with those notes I have come up with what I now consider to be my favourite markers. So let's just dive in and see what I learned. Okay, so I'm going to start off with Arrtex markers. I bought these way back in May, so I've had plenty of time to get to know them, to get to know the little quirks, as I have done with all the markers. They've all had months and months worth of testing, and I'm going to be recommending in the end the ones that I reach for the most. I absolutely was so excited when these arrived. I had seen them all over YouTube. It felt like every art YouTuber that I watched used these markers and absolutely loved them. So I was desperate to get them. They appeal to my colour magpie nature because they have such an amazing selection. I think altogether you can get 120 colours. They still hands down have the best colour choice, but unfortunately they come with so many issues. Even when I first got them and I started swatching them, a couple of the markers just turned out to be a little bit dry, and I remember at the time I contacted Arrtex directly and they'd suggested that sometimes this can happen during the shipping process. And so I was to make sure that it stood with the nib facing down for at least 24 hours. I have to say, at the time, in the moment, that seemed to work okay. So I was satisfied with that. But as the months progressed, they just continued to be really, really temperamental. And it's weird because one day they would work and one day they wouldn't. So it wasn't even like the pen had dried out. It's just the flow was that inconsistent. So one day it would work fine, and then it would stop working, and then the next day it would be working okay. Sometimes even during an actual crafty session, 1 minute it was working, then it wasn't, then 10 minutes later it was working again. And it just really takes the joy out of creating when you're concerned whether your supply is going to manage to cope with the entire project. I have to say, I've only seen one other YouTuber complain about this, and that is Ashley Monet. I know that she found them highly inconsistent and she struggles with them too. But now, having bought other markers, I can see some vital differences or vital things that are missing. So the pens don't have a ball bearing, so if they do feel a little bit dry, you can't sort of like shake them up and reactivate them. I mean, you can shake them if you want, but there's no sort of visible way of knowing if you fully kind of mixed it as well. And also there's no window for you to see whether the paint is needing mixed up or whether you've ran out of paint. So I am gutted about this because I really do love the colour range. I have to say though that when I use them on various mediums, I find the opacity really varies. Some of them are so opaque, some of them less so. When it came to using them on watercolour paper in my watercolour journal, there was a very slight pilling, not enough to distress me, but there was a bit of a slight pilling, but they performed really well on canvas and plastic. But when it came to the MDF, it seemed to soak into the MDF incredibly quickly. So in the next thing I did was I saw that people had Arrtex Symptap markers. Now these were markers that have a pump action, so when the pen dries you can give it a little pump and it feeds more paint to the nib, and I thought this was going to be the solution to all my issues with the original pens. So I then went out and bought a set of these. So oh my goodness, so many issues, so many issues. So some of them I just found really difficult to activate, and one pen came completely empty. There was absolutely no paint in the barrel whatsoever. I was busy trying really hard to get it to work and then realised it's not working because there's no paint in the barrel. So that is just shocking. Some of the colours didn't perform that well on black. I did find it pilled quite a lot on the watercolour paper. But it performed really well on handmade paper. The fact that you could add more paint to the flow if you needed really helped on that. On the MDF it looked incredibly watery and bled a lot, and it didn't perform that well on canvas. And I have to say, these have been sat in my room longer than some of the other pens and I barely reached for them at all. There is another type of Arrtex marker that does have the window, but to be honest I've now bought two from their range and been really disappointed in both, so I wasn't going to go down that route. So I moved on to the Ohuhu Nahuko pens. These are really cute, they're nice packaging. I love the fact that they come in a little case, they're easy to sort of take with you, and they're really, really lovely, and they performed very, very well. I did find that they're quite small pens, they're really quite dinky, and I think that affected how comfortable they were to use, so I didn't find them very ergonomically satisfying. And also because they're so small, I question how much ink or how much paint is actually in them, but that could be optical illusion. But it's like I'm kind of thinking small paint, less paint. Maybe that's just me. Also, the set I got was the 24, I think, so it had quite a limited colour palette, and considering it had a limited colour palette, some of the paint pens were very close together in colour. I think if you're going to give somebody a limited paint palette, then give them a variety of colours. Like, I don't mind so much in a bigger set when you're getting loads of colours and all the shades and tones really make a difference, but you know, the BV10 and the VO9 are practically the same. I would rather have had a bit more contrast, but maybe that's just me. Also, I did find with them that some of the nibs, like the black one, just seem very slightly frayed, so it makes me question the durability of how well these would perform on a consistent basis. But they do, however, have that essential ball bearing and the window, so you can kind of reactivate it. And when it came to all the tests that I performed, they did really, really well. They're incredibly juicy, they're well pigmented, and I had no issues with pilling on any of them. And I do actually pull them out quite a lot when I am crafting, so I do really like these ones. I would actually go for them. And then now they have a 48 set as well, so you can get a set with slightly more colours. And then as a budget one, went for Winsons. These are nice, but to be honest, if I was choosing between these and the Ohuhu Nahuko, I would go with the Ohuhu Nahuko. They both work out at 70p per pen, so they were the same price. And if I was choosing between the two, I would definitely go for the Ohuhu. Just basically because the Ohuhu is better packaged, it has the window, and they're more pigmented. The Winsons, they do work really well, but you do have to shake them really well or they can end up a little bit watery. There was a slight pilling on the watercolour paper, but it performed well everywhere else. And yeah, they were really creamy when it came to the canvas and the MDF. But yeah, they have no ball bearing and no window, so that is why I would choose Ohuhu over them. Twohands, I think these are brilliant if it talks about having a great budget start. If you're just not sure if acrylic markers are for you and you want to dip your toe in the water and try them out but don't want to spend a lot, I think these are like a really good starter set to see if you like acrylic markers. They do have limited colours. I think I got a pack of 12 and I think that's only the 12 that you can get, but they are really nice and opaque. Even on the black, they performed really well. I've actually had these in my travel art kit, so they're in my pencil case that comes with me everywhere. So I have used them a lot, and I've used them on location, which means I've used them in coffee shops, I've used them on freezing cold beaches, I've used them in the park, and despite being taken to various climates, they have performed well. It hasn't created an issue with any of those things. When it came to doing all the testing on the various different papers and mediums, there was a slight pilling on the watercolour paper, but when it came to the canvas and the MDF, they were the creamiest of all the markers. They are so lush, so I really like them. Finally, we are coming to Shuttle Art. These are gorgeous. They are so nice. They come in the most beautifully presented case, which is really secure, and I love the fact that there is 60 colours. I appreciate that Arrtex have 120, which is double, and Colour Magpie-ness wants 120 of the Shuttle Art markers, but there's a good selection and more than most other brands. It has the window feature and the ball bearing. Also with these pens, I find that there's a really satisfying click when you close them, so you know that you have closed them properly and it's not going to be down to user error if they dry out. They do recommend that you store the pens upright, but the case that it comes in allows for that. All the colours performed well. Some of the paler colours struggled a little bit on the black card, but that was very similar to the Arrtex. I do seem to find that the pastel colours just struggle a little bit more, and you need to kind of layer up to get the opacity. I find that the nibs are nicer than any of the other ones. They're much nicer than the Ohuhu ones because there's absolutely no fraying at all. They are so creamy and they performed really well when it came to all the different mediums. So I tested things in my watercolour journal, I tested them on a handmade paper journal, on wood and canvas, and just daily practice. And I have to say that when it comes to just doing my regular arting, that these are the pens that I always pull out when it comes to creating any form of art. So as an overall review, Arrtex works out at £1.08 per pen. The opacity varied, it didn't have a window, it doesn't have a ball bearing, the flow consistency wasn't consistent, but it was ergonomic. The Symptaps cost £1.02 per pen. The opacity varies, they don't have a window, they do have a ball bearing, they don't have a constant flow consistency, but you do have the ability to fix it with the pump action, and they are fairly ergonomic. The Ohuhu Nahuko work out at 70p per pen. They have very good opacity, they do have a window, they also have a ball bearing. The flow consistency is good, but I don't find them particularly ergonomic, but that could be a personal thing. The Winston pens work out at 70p per pen. The opacity is very good. They don't have a window, they do have a ball bearing. I find their flow consistency to be very good, and they were very ergonomic. The Twohands worked out at 66p per pen. The opacity was brilliant. They do have a window, they have a ball bearing, the flow consistency was good, and they are ergonomic. And the Shuttle Art pen worked out at 79p per pen. The opacity varies, with pastel colours being a bit more translucent, but they do have a window, they do have a ball bearing, the flow consistency is very good, and they are ergonomic. So after months and months of playing and testing and using these markers on a very regular basis, I have narrowed it down to 2 sets. So these two, and I recommend them both depending on who you are. If you're brand new to acrylic markers and you're not even sure if you like them or if you want to give them a go, but you think like, I'd like to dip my toe in the water, see what everyone's going on about, then I would recommend these. They are so creamy, they work really well on your MDF, your canvas. They're really good and I've really enjoyed using them. The only downside for me is the limited palette, but I do use these very regularly. These are now in my pencil case that I take with me when I go on sketchbook dates or sketch on location. So I still have my beloved acrylic markers with me, and so they do get a lot of use. based on what are the acrylic markers that I reach for the most, absolutely these ones. Nearly every single day that I create, these come out and I use them. I absolutely adore them. But look at the colour selection. So I think if you know you love your acrylic markers and you want a nice big selection but you don't know which are the best, I would hands down go for these. I absolutely adore them. As I said, one of the main differences is you can shake them and there is a window, so if you do feel it's getting a little bit dry, just shake them and they've been absolutely fine. I've had no problems with these at all. Absolutely love them. But as I said, I do use both, but these are my top recommendation. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you would like to see me use these a lot more, I am back every Friday. Next Friday we are doing Sketchbook to Craft Desk, and we can use these in our art journal. Take care, and I'll see you next week.